Hello everyone, I'm Mira Frisch. I teach cello at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. In this video, we're going to talk about how to tune your cello. We're first going to just talk about how to tune your cello and how to use your fine tuners. Hopefully you have fine tuners. If not, you'll be able to tune your cello using your pegs, which we'll talk about. And we're going to be talking about using an electronic tuner to tune. And then in the next segment, we'll actually go back to our discussion of harmonics and talk about how to tune your cello using harmonics. If you want to have really excellent intonation, it's so important to tune your instrument very well each and every time you practice. So I've been playing the cello for many years, and I still always use a tuner to tune my A string. And after my A string, I'm able to use harmonics or the sound of my open strings to tune my other strings. But when I was first learning for several years, I used a tuner to tune all my strings. And if you want to develop your ear so that you get to the point where you don't need a tuner to tune, the best thing you can do is always play on an in-tune instrument so that your ear gets to be really strong because you'll always be listening to yourself practice in tune, and then over time you will develop the ear to be able to tune without the tuner. So in this video we will just use the tuner. The first thing is that we're just going to have our tuner on, and we're going to bow on the A string to start with, and we'll see what the tuner says. The neat thing about these electronic tuners is that they will tell you what note you're playing, and that'll be indicated with a letter name at the top of the tuner. And then also these lights that flash either right in the middle or to the left or right of the middle will tell you if you're in tune. If the lights flash to the left of the middle, that means you're flat. And if they flash to the right, that means you're sharp. So that's how we read the tuner. So first I'm going to bow my A string, and we'll see what the tuner says. Well, luckily the tuner says that I'm playing an A, so we're pretty close. But notice that the tuner is shining lights when I bow to the left of center. So that tells me that my A string is just a little bit flat. I'm still an A, but it's a little bit flat. So since I just need to do a minor adjustment, I'm going to be able to use my fine tuners. We'll use fine tuners for minor adjustments, and we'll use our tuning pegs for bigger adjustments. So fine tuners are basically just screws, and they work just like screws. If we turn them clockwise or to the right, as in righty-tighty, that adds tension to the string, which makes the pitch go higher. And the opposite is true. If we turn this screw counterclockwise, lefty-loosey, that takes tension out of the string and makes the pitch go lower. So in this case, I need to add tension to my string to make the A get a little bit higher. So I'm going to actually turn my fine tuner to the right. And sometimes it helps to actually turn your instrument around so that you don't get right and left mixed up. But I'll go ahead and do it this way since I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get this one mixed up. So we're going to turn righty-tighty, and we'll keep turning until we get all those lights, all those green lights right in the middle of the tuner that tell me I'm right on. And fine tuners, you can actually turn a lot. You can turn 1 or 2 or sometimes even 10 full turns, and you're not going to be making a huge difference in pitch, so you're not really at risk of breaking your string. There we go. Now my A is in tune. I've got green lights in the middle. Let's go to the D string next. The D string is pretty close, but as you can see, it's just slightly flat. So I'm going to just adjust that. Great. Now let's go to the G string. Oh boy, we've got a lot of work to do. The tuner is telling me that I'm playing an F, and that is supposed to be my open G. So I'm a whole step lower than I need to be. So unfortunately, my fine tuner is not going to cut it. It's not going to be able to make that big of a difference. I just use my fine tuners for fine adjustments. If I were to try to use my fine tuner to crank this G string up a whole step, like any screw, if I turn it enough times righty-tighty or clockwise, that screw is just going to be stuck all the way in and I won't be able to turn it anymore to the right. So if that were to happen at any point, I would want to do about 10 or 15 screws counterclockwise or to the left, just to loosen that fine tuner so it's not stuck all the way in, and then I would make adjustments with my tuning peg. In this case, I don't want my fine tuner to get stuck in the first place, so I'm going to use my tuning peg. Now I would suggest, since we're going to just use the tuning peg to get the G string to be pretty close, and then we'll adjust with the fine tuner, that you not use your bow. You can just play pizzicato, and I will actually suggest that you even stand, because sometimes it takes effort to tune a cello using the tuning pegs. There are two important things to consider when you're using your tuning pegs. One is that very small turns make a huge difference in pitch. So if you were to rotate, especially making the string tighter, a full turn or even a half turn of your tuning peg, you could be at risk of breaking a string. So I want to warn you to make very small adjustments. Try to turn just a millimeter at a time and then check the pitch. Okay? The second thing is that pegs stay in place only when we push inward towards the scroll on the peg with all our might as we turn. And that's actually the biggest reason why I'm standing, so that I can get lots of leverage and push that peg in towards the scroll as I turn it. So going back to my G string, remember I'm a whole step flat. The tuner is reading an F natural and I need to be at a G natural. So I'm going to need to raise the pitch, and so I'm actually going to take my peg, and this would be the same if I were on the other side tuning the A or the D, and I'm going to need to tighten the string to raise it up a whole step, and I'm going to do that by turning the peg so that I turn the top of the peg toward the back of the instrument. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You'll see me putting a lot of leverage inward as I turn, and I'm going to turn just about a millimeter at a time to make sure I don't break my string. There, I just did a very tiny adjustment. That was about the tiniest amount of motion I could do, and I went up about a half step. So I'll keep going. Now just pitching, I can see that the tuner is telling me that I've got my string at some kind of a G. It's not perfectly in tune, but I've used my peg to get to that point. So now that I've used my tuning peg to get my G string turned up high enough that now I'm very close, the tuner is telling me that my G string is just ever so slightly sharp. I'm going to use my fine tuner to adjust. Check my C. My tuner is telling me that my C string is a little sharp, but it's still a C. So I should be safe to use my fine tuner to adjust this string. Almost there. My cello's in tune.